This has two parts. It has rigid motions and it also has direct. So we have to look at this and kind of piece everything together. First of all, rigid motion is anything that doesn't change size or shape. So we're looking for dilations, and let's find the dilations first, and then we'll talk about if they're rigid motions or not. So this first one here has a dilation of 3. It's going to make it 3 times as big. That is definitely not a rigid motion because of that right there. This last one has a dilation of 5, which is not a rigid motion, but then it has a dilation of 1/5. So if you think about that in terms of numbers, it would be 2 times 5 is 10, but then times 1/5, which would put it back to 2. So that means this is actually a dilation of 1, which we hopefully remember is a rigid motion. So those 3 are all rigid motions. That should have an S next to it. Direct. Single line reflections are indirect. And really it's odd line reflections. So odd number of line reflections is not direct. Okay, so this one here has 2 line reflections. So that's going to flip it, but then flip it back. So that one's going to be direct. This one has just 1 line reflection right there. So that one is going to be not direct because of that line reflection. So both of these other 2 are both going to be rigid motions, and they're also both going to be direct. That's not a common question. Usually they'll just ask rigid motions, which in that case it would be B, C, and D. All right, but if it does ask direct, remember that line reflections are what mess up direct and indirect. And it's not just any line reflections, it's an odd number of line reflections that messes those things up.